a Wikividi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. It, 2017 film. It is a 2017 American supernatural horror film directed by Andy Muschietti, based on the 1986 novel of the same name by Stephen King. The screenplay is by Chase Palmer, Cary Fukunaga, and Gary Dauberman. The film is set in the summer of 1989 and tells the story of 7 children in Derry, Maine, who are terrorized by the eponymous being, only to face their own personal demons in the process. The novel was previously adapted into a 1990 miniseries. The film stars Jaden Lieber and Bill Skarsgård as Bill Denborough and Pennywise the Dancing Clown, respectively, with Jeremy Ray Taylor, Sophia Lillis, Finn Wolfhard, Chosen Jacobs, Jack Dylan Grazer, Wyatt Oleaf, Nicholas Hamilton, and Jackson Robert Scott in supporting roles. Principal photography began in the Riverdale neighborhood of Toronto on June 27, 2016, and ended on September 21, 2016. Other Ontario locations included Port Hope and Oshawa. It premiered in Los Angeles on September 5, 2017, and was theatrically released in the United States by New Line Cinema and Warner Bros. Pictures on September 8, 2017. Upon release, the film set numerous box office records and grossed $700 million worldwide. Unadjusted for inflation, it is the highest-grossing horror film and the 4th highest-grossing R-rated film, as well as the most profitable horror film. It received positive reviews, with critics praising the performances, direction, cinematography and musical score, with many calling it one of the best Stephen King adaptations. A sequel, It, Chapter 2, is scheduled to be released on September 6, 2019. Plot. In October 1988, Bill Denborough gives his 7-year-old brother, Georgie, a paper sailboat. Georgie sails the boat along the rainy streets of small-town Derry, and is disappointed when it falls down a storm drain. As he attempts to retrieve it, Georgie sees a clown in the sewer, who introduces himself as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. The clown entices Georgie to come closer, then severs his arm and drags him into the sewer. The following summer, Bill and his friends, Richie Tozier, Eddie Karsbrach, and Stan Uris, run afoul of older bully Henry Bowers and his gang. Bill, still haunted by Georgie's disappearance and the resulting neglect from his grief-stricken parents, discovers that his brother's body may have washed up in a marshy wasteland called the Barrens. He recruits his friends to investigate, believing his brother may still be alive. Ben Hanscom learns that the town has been plagued by unexplained tragedies and child disappearances for centuries. He is targeted by Bowers' gang, after which he flees into the Barrens and meets Bill's group. They find the sneaker of a missing girl, while a member of the pursuing Bowers' gang, Patrick Hochstetter, is killed by Pennywise while searching the sewers for Ben. Beverly Marsh, a girl ostracized over rumors of promiscuity, also joins the group. Both Bill and Ben develop feelings for her. Later, the group befriends Mike Hanlon after defending him from Bowers. All the while each member of the group has encountered terrifying phenomena in various forms. These include the same menacing clown who attacked Georgie, a headless boy, a fountain of blood, a diseased and rotting man, a creepy painting come to life, Mike's parents burning alive, and a phantom Georgie. Now calling themselves the Losers Club, they realize they are all being terrorized by the same entity. They determine that it assumes the appearance of what they fear, awakens every 27 years to feed on the children of Derry before returning to hibernation, and moves about by using sewer lines, which all lead to a well currently under the abandoned house at 29 Neibolt Street. After an attack by Pennywise, the group ventures to the house to confront him, only to be separated and terrorized. Eddie breaks his arm, while Pennywise gloats to Bill about Georgie. As they regroup, Beverly impales Pennywise through the head, forcing the clown to retreat. After the encounter, the group begins to splinter, with only Bill and Beverly resolute in fighting it. Weeks later, after Beverly confronts and incapacitates her sexually abusive father, she is abducted by Pennywise. The Losers Club reassembles and travels back to the Neibolt house to rescue her. Bowers, who has killed his father after being compelled into madness by it, attacks the group. Mike fights back and pushes Bowers down the well to his apparent death. The losers descend into the sewers and find its underground lair, which contains a mountain of decayed circus props and children's belongings, around which the bodies of missing children float in mid-air. Beverly, now catatonic after being exposed to its true form, is restored to consciousness as Ben kisses her. Bill encounters Georgie, but recognizes that he is Pennywise in disguise. Pennywise attacks the group and takes Bill hostage, offering to spare the others if they let it keep Bill. The losers reject this and reaffirm their friendship, overcoming their various fears. After a brief battle, they defeat Pennywise and it retreats, with Bill declaring that it will starve during its hibernation. Bill finally accepts his brother's death and is comforted by his friends. As summer ends, Beverly informs the group of a vision she had while catatonic, where she saw them fighting the creature as adults. The losers create a blood oath by cutting each other's hands and forming a circle, swearing to return to Derry in adulthood if it returns and destroy the creature once and for all. Stanley, Eddie, Richie, Mike, and Ben make their goodbyes as the group part ways. Beverly tells Bill she is leaving the next day to live with her aunt in Portland. As she leaves, Bill runs up to her and they kiss. Production. The project first entered development in 2009. The proposed film adaptation went through 3 phases of planning. Initially a single film with screenwriter David Kajganich, then the dual film project. First with Cary Fukunaga attached as director and co-writer, then with Andy Muschietti. Kajganich Project, 2009-2010. On March 12, 2009, Variety reported that Warner Brothers would bring Stephen King's novel to the big screen, with David Kajganich adapting the novel, and Dan Lin, Roy Lee and Doug Davison producing the piece. When Kajganich learned of Warner Brothers' plans to adapt King's novel, he went after the job. Knowing that Warner Brothers was committed to adapting it as a single feature film, Kajganich began to reread the novel in an attempt to try to find a structure that would accommodate such a large number of characters in 2 different time periods, around 120 pages, which was one of Warner Brothers' stipulations. Kajganich worked with Lin, Lee, and Davison on The Invasion, and he knew they would champion good storytelling and allow him the time to work out a solid first draft of the screenplay. Kajganich spoke of the remake being set in the mid-1980s and in the present, mirroring the 20-odd-year gap King uses in the book, and with a great deal of care and attention paid to the backstories of all the characters. Kajganich also mentioned that Warner Brothers wished for the adaptation to be rated R, saying, "We can really honor the book and engage with the traumas that these characters endure." He said that his dream choice for Pennywise would be Buster Keaton if he was still alive, and that the Pennywise that he scripted is less self-conscious of his own irony and surreality. Kajganich was rewriting his screenplay. Fukunaga Project, 2012-2015. On June 7, 2012, The Hollywood Reporter said that Cary Fukunaga was boarding the project as director, and would co-write the script with Chase Palmer. The producers were now Roy Lee of Vertigo Entertainment, Dan Lin of Lin Pictures, and Seth Grahame-Smith and David Katzenberg of Katz-Smith Productions. On May 21, 2014, Warner Brothers was announced to have moved the film to its New Line Cinema division, with overseer duties conducting by New Line's Walter Hamada and Dave Neustadter, along with Vice President of Production at Warner Brothers Nigel Kirkendall. On December 5, 2014, in an interview with Vulture, Dan Lin announced that the first film would be a coming-of-age story about the children tormented by it, and the second will skip ahead in time as those same characters band together to continue the fight as adults. Lin also stated that Fukunaga was then only committed to directing the first film, though was currently closing a deal to co-write the second. Lin concluded by mentioning King, to which he remarked, "The most important thing is that King gave us his blessing. We didn't want to make this unless he felt it was the right way to go. And when we sent him the script, the response that Cary got back was, 'Go with God, please. This is the version the studio should make.' So that was really gratifying." Lin confirmed that Fukunaga was set to begin principal photography in the summer of 2016. On February 3, 2015, Fukunaga was interviewed by Slate and spoke about it, mentioning that he has someone in mind for the role of Pennywise. On March 3, 2015, Fukunaga noted his goal to find the perfect guy to play Pennywise. Fukunaga also said that he, Cage, Ganek and Palmer had changed the names and dates in the script, adding, "The spirit is similar to what you'd like to see in cinemas." On May 4, 2015, it was officially announced that Will Poulter had been cast to play Pennywise, after Fukunaga was blown away by his audition. Ty Simpkins was then considered to play one of the Losers Club members. On May 25, 2015, it was reported that Fukunaga had dropped out as the director of it. According to the Wrap, Fukunaga clashed with the studio and did not want to compromise his artistic vision in the wake of budget cuts by New Line, which greenlit the first film at $30 million. However, Fukunaga maintained that was not the case, stating he had bigger disagreements with New Line over the direction of the story. "I was trying to make an unconventional horror film. It didn't fit into the algorithm of what they knew they could spend and make money back on based on not offending their standard genre audience." He made mention that the budget was fine, as well as his desire to make Pennywise more than just the clown. Fukunaga concluded by stating, "We invested years and so much anecdotal storytelling in it. Chase and I both put our childhood in that story. So our biggest fear was they were going to take our script and bastardize it. So I'm actually thankful that they are going to rewrite the script. I wouldn't want them to stealing our childhood memories and using that. I was honoring King's spirit of it, but I needed to update it. King saw an earlier draft and liked it." On Fukunaga's departure, King wrote, "The remake of IT may be dead or undead, but we'll always have Tim Curry. He's still floating down in the sewers of Derry." Muschietti Project, 2015-2017. On July 16, 2015, it was announced that Andy Muschietti was in negotiations to direct it, with New Line beginning a search for a new writer to tailor a script to Muschietti's vision. The announcement also confirmed the possible participation of Muschietti's sister, Barbara Muschietti, as a producer, and Richard Brenner joining Hamada, Neustadter and Kirkendall to oversee the project. On April 22, 2016, it was indicated that Will Poulter, who had been cast to portray Pennywise in Fukunaga's version, had dropped out of the film due to a scheduling conflict, and that executives were meeting with actors to portray the antagonist. Also that day, New Line Cinema set the film for a release of September 8, 2017. On October 30, 2015, Muschietti was interviewed by Variety wherein he spoke about his vision of it. While mentioning Poulter was still in the mix for the role of Pennywise, "Poulter would be a great option. For me he is at the top of my list." He confirmed that next summer is the time for them to start shooting. It was decided to shoot it during the summer months to give the filmmakers time to work with the children who have the main roles in the first part of the film. Muschietti went on to say that King described 50s terror iconography, adding that he feels there is a whole world now to rediscover, to update. He said there would not be any mummies or werewolves, and that the terrors are going to be a lot more surprising. On February 19, 2016, at the DICE Summit 2016, producer Roy Lee confirmed that Fukunaga and Chase Palmer's original script had been rewritten, remarking, "It will hopefully be shooting later this year. We just got the California tax credit." Doberman wrote the most recent draft working with Muschietti, so it's being envisioned as 2 movies. On May 5, 2016, in an interview with Collider, David Cage Ganek expressed uncertainty as to whether drafts of his original screenplay would be used by Doberman and Muschietti, with the writer stating, "We know Terry's a new director. I don't know myself whether he's going back to any of the previous drafts or writing from scratch. I may not know until the film comes out. I don't know how it works. If you find out, let me know." On June 2, 2016, Jaden Lieber was confirmed as portraying lead protagonist Bill Denborough, while The Hollywood Reporter reported that Bill Skarsgård was in final negotiations to star as Pennywise, with a cast also including Finn Wolfhard, Jack Dylan Grazer, Wyatt Oleaf, Chosen Jacobs, and Jeremy Ray Taylor. Also that day, there was a call for 100 background performers, with the background actor call going from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. By 4 p.m. more than 300 people had gone through. The casting call also asked for a marching band and period cars between 1970 and 1989. On June 9, 2016, The Hollywood Reporter reported that Owen Teague was set to portray Patrick Hochstetter. On June 21, 2016, it was officially announced that Nicholas Hamilton had been cast to play Henry Bowers. And Bloody Disgusting reported that Javier Botet had been added to the cast shortly before filming commenced. On June 22, 2016, Deadline Hollywood reported that Muschietti had chosen Sophia Lillis to portray Beverly Marsh. And on June 24, 2016, Movie Pilot wrote that Stephen Bogert had been added to the cast shortly before filming commenced, portraying Al Marsh, the abusive father of Beverly Marsh. On July 22, 2016, Barbara Muschietti was interviewed by Northumberland News' Karen Longwell, wherein she spoke about the filming locations on it, while mentioning the beauty of Port Hope being one of the reasons as to why it was chosen. Muschietti added, "We were looking for an idyllic town, one that would be a strong contrast to the story. Port Hope is the kind of place we all wish we had grown up in. Long summers riding bicycles, walks by the lake, a lovely main street, charming homes with green lawns, warm people." Muschietti also mentioned that 360 extras from the area, from adults to small children, had been involved. On August 11, 2016, at the CWTCA presentation for the series Frequency, producer Dan Lin spoke of the piece's comparison to Netflix's Stranger Things, describing it being an homage to 1980s movies. While remarking, "I think a great analogy is actually Stranger Things, and we're seeing it on Netflix right now. It's very much an homage to 80s movies, whether it's classic Stephen King or even Spielberg. Think about Stand By Me as far as the bonding amongst the kids. But there is a really scary element in Pennywise." Lin continued, speaking of how well the young cast had bonded in the first weeks of shooting. "We clearly had a great dynamic amongst the kids. Really great chemistry is always a challenging thing with a movie like it, because you're casting kids who don't have a ton of experience, but it ended up being really natural. Each kid, like The Goonies or Stand By Me, has a very specific personality and they're forming the Losers Club obviously. We've spent a few months getting the kids to bond. And now they're going to fight this evil, scary clown." On February 9, 2017, at the press day for the Lego Batman movie, Lin confirmed that it would be rated R by the PA, and stated to Collider.com's Steve Weintraub, "If you're going to make a rated R movie, you have to fully embrace what it is, and you have to embrace the source material. It is a scary clown that's trying to kill kids. They do have a scary clown that's taken over the town of Derry, so it's going to be rated R." On March 11, 2017, Muschietti, at the SXSW Festival, spoke of an element of the pre-production phase in his attempt to keep Skarsgård separated from the film's child actors, wherein the actor was not introduced to the young cast until Pennywise's first encounter with the children. "It was something that we agreed on, and that's how it happened. The day that he showed up on the stage, they fucking freaked out. Bill is like 7 foot high, and I can't describe how scary he looks in person. He's a wiry man, crouching, making sounds, snotting, drooling, speaking in Swedish sometimes. Terrifying." Muschietti stated that the story had been moved forward, with the scenes with the Young Losers Club shifting from the 1950s to the 1980s, while also describing the plot as getting much wider, with new material not in the novel or the 1990 miniseries. However, Muschietti said he hoped the material would still strike the same emotional resonance that the book did for him when he first read it. "It's all about trying to hit the core and the heart." On July 12, 2017, Muschietti, in an interview with French magazine Mad Movies, spoke of the R rating allowing him to go into adult themes, which was championed from the people at New Line Cinema. He also stated that, "If you aimed for a page 13 movie, you had nothing at the end. So we were very lucky that the producers didn't try to stop us. In fact, it's more our own moral compass that sometimes showed us that some things lead us in places where we didn't want to go." In the same interview, on July 12, 2017, producer Barbara Muschietti added that there was only one scene that was deemed to be too horrific to feature in the new adaptation, stating, You won't find the scene where a kid has his back broken and is thrown in the toilets. We thought that the visual translation of that scene had something that was really too much. Muschietti concluded by emphasizing that nothing was removed from the original vision, nor was the violence of any event watered down. On July 19, 2017, in an interview with Variety's Brent Lang, director Muschietti commented of the monstrous forms that it will be taking, as well as noting the fact that they are very different from the incarnations present in King's story. The story is the same, but there are changes in the things the kids are scared of. In the book they're children in the 50s, so the incarnations of the monsters are mainly from movies. So it's Wolfman, The Mummy, Frankenstein, and Dracula. I had a different approach. I wanted to bring out deeper fears, based not only on movie monsters, but on childhood traumas. While on the topic of the key to a successful horror film, Muschietti concluded by remarking that, stay true to what scares you. If you don't respect that, you can't scare anyone. Muschietti explained how Skarsgård caught his attention to embody Pennywise, while pointing out that he did not want the young cast to spend too much time with the actor when not shooting, and encouraged them to maintain distance. Wherein Muschietti detailed, we wanted to carry the impact of the encounters to when the cameras were rolling. The first scene where Bill interacted with the children, it was fun to see how the plan worked. The kids were really creeped out by Bill. He's pretty intimidating, because he's 6'4" and has all this makeup. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?